Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the psychology behind a totally fascinating cognitive trait. Why you might barely say a single word at a social gathering, but somehow you walk away remembering absolutely everything. It's kind of like this quiet superpower, one that goes completely unnoticed by the loudest voices in the room. Just picture this. You're sitting quietly at a dinner party, seemingly totally ignored by the group, right? Only to shock everyone days later by flawlessly correcting a misremembered detail, with the exact words and tone that were used. If you have ever been the quiet one who somehow ends up holding the collective memory for your whole group of friends or your colleagues, well, you know exactly what this feels like. Now, other people might just assume you're shy or, disengaged from the conversation. But psychology actually reveals that your mind is operating on a fundamentally different, highly observational level. You aren't absent at all. You are present. You're watching and you're recording. You're literally processing reality in a way that active talkers simply cannot pull off. So, Section 1, the divided attention cost. Let's really look at this battle between talking and remembering, and we'll start with the mechanical limits of your brain's cognitive resources. Think about it like this. Every single conversation carries a verbal stream and a nonverbal stream. Active talkers, they have to split their finite cognitive bandwidth right down the middle between generating their own responses and actually listening. Psychologists call this the divided attention cost. Talkers are constantly juggling, trying to manage their own impression, formulate their next super clever point, and decode what's being said to them all at the exact same time. Honestly, it's completely exhausting just thinking about it. But take a look at the bandwidth of the quiet observer. Because you aren't generating output, you pay zero divided attention cost. Nada. This leaves your full, undivided bandwidth available to record high-resolution input. You aren't just casually hearing the conversation. Your free resources allow you to actively record both the actual words being spoken and those nonverbal emotional undercurrents, all at once. Moving into Section 2, deep versus shallow encoding. This dramatic difference in your cognitive bandwidth completely changes how your brain actually stores the things it hears. See, active participants are basically forced into shallow encoding just to survive the moment. It's almost like they're just treading water at the surface, barely capturing the broad strokes of what's happening. But your undivided attention, it automatically defaults to deep encoding. It's like diving all the way to the ocean floor. You're building this rich, durable memory trace. You attach relational significance and real sensory texture to the moment, which makes it incredibly resilient over time. Which brings us to Section 3, reading the hidden signals. Because you're so deeply absorbing the context, you naturally pick up on all these invisible layers of communication that the loud talkers completely miss. You're essentially reading the room on a totally different frequency, catching what we call paralinguistic information, which is really just those vital signals carried not by the words themselves, but by the incredibly subtle way those words are delivered, requires a fraction of a second of pure, undivided observational attention. Speaking simply doesn't allow for this. Active talkers speed right past these crucial cues, mainly because their brains are way too busy formulating their next sentence. But because your attention is free, you effortlessly absorb and store these crucial micro-expressions. You notice that slight pitch rise in a colleague's voice. You catch a pause that lasts, just 2 beats too long. You register a delayed laugh that feels, chosen rather than genuinely felt. Or you notice when someone suddenly reaches for a safer word. You capture the whole shebang, remembering not just what was said, but what those words were actually hiding. All right, on to Section 4, the absorptive processing orientation. Psychology officially categorizes this fundamental difference into 2 distinct ways the human mind interacts with experience. Now, our society heavily rewards expressive processors. These are the folks who externalize their world by thinking out loud in real time. But absorptive processors, they do the exact opposite. They silently contain an experience and process it completely before ever reacting to it. And look, expressive processing is totally valid, for sure. But as an absorptive processor, you kind of live inside the experience, examining it from multiple angles, and that creates a vastly different memory profile. Research consistently shows that this quiet containment leads to significantly higher recall accuracy. You aren't just vaguely remembering a conversation, you process it completely to build this incredibly nuanced, massive internal archive of past interactions. It's like a giant library in your mind. Let's look at Section 5, your emotional memory archive. We're going to see how this builds into the exact brain architecture that dictates why you remember things so incredibly clearly. Psychologist Elaine Aron's research on sensory processing sensitivity reveals something really fascinating. Only about 15 to 20% of the population has a nervous system that's architecturally built this way. That's a pretty exclusive club. It's designed to process incoming stimulation at a much more thorough, detailed baseline. Simply put, your brain automatically allocates way more processing resources to every single piece of incoming information. Because your highly sensitive nervous system is calibrated to feel the true emotional atmosphere of a room, your amygdala basically acts as an alarm, preferentially flagging those significant moments. Then, your hippocampus steps right in to lock them away with extraordinary durability. This neurological handshake is called emotional memory consolidation, and it's exactly why your memories feel so incredibly alive and textured when you pull them back up later. This is exactly why your memories aren't just random, disjointed facts. You preferentially retain the highly contextual details that actually mattered in that moment. You remembered the unfinished sentence, a slight catch in someone's voice, that unseen look exchanged between two people across the table, or a sudden shift in the room's energy. You capture the absolute full reality of the interaction. The big takeaway here, psychology isn't telling you to force yourself to speak more or, take up more space. What you should take away from this explainer is a really deep appreciation for your own internal processing. You weren't absent. Actually, scratch that. You were the most present person in the room. You chose storing over speaking, and let me tell you, that is an absolutely incredible cognitive advantage. So the next time someone is totally startled by your accuracy, just remember this. They were performing, you were recording. Let them be surprised. Their cognitive load simply didn't allow them to see the room the way you did. Because the truth is, you did have access to something they didn't. Understanding how your uniquely absorptive mind works really does change absolutely everything. So here's a thought to leave you with. The next time you find yourself silently observing a busy room, ask yourself, what hidden layer of human experience are you quietly archiving right now?